All right, a final decision from the Supreme Court is expected by the end of June or July. Political analyst Royal Alexander joins us in studio tonight to give us a little more insight on this case. Royal, it's good to have you here. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Let's talk about this pivotal case. Explain to me, if you can, why Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act conflicts with this 14th and 15th Amendments in the Constitution when it comes down to this redrawn district, because there's a lot of conflict with this. Can you break it down for us?
Absolutely. This tension has existed for a long time, and about every time Louisiana goes through congressional redistricting after the census, we have this problem, because the Voting Rights Act says that a state cannot weaken or dilute minority voting strength. That's the Voting Rights Act. It's a powerful federal statute. But on the other hand, equal protection in the 14th Amendment says, but you cannot draw districts based on race. So that collision exists, and states like Louisiana get sued every time.
Interesting. Well, piggybacking off that last question, when it comes to the decision which carries more weight to you, the Voting Rights Act or the 14th and 15th Amendments in the Constitution, does one carry more weight than the other?
It does. The Constitution itself is the supreme law of the land and would always trump a statute. But I've got to say, over the last 45 years, there's a ton of precedents, and the court is supposed to stick to precedent pertaining to the Voting Rights Act.
Interesting. Well, this redrawn district that is in question runs from Baton Rouge up through Lafayette to Alexandria, and then eventually up here to Shreveport. And some are saying that it's an odd grouping because it spans really across the whole state. Would you agree with that?
I think it makes more sense for regions to have as compact of districts
more
as
regional
possible.
then.
More regional.
Yeah.
Because Baton Rouge has more things in common with kind of the middle of the state. We up here in many ways are very similar to East Texas. Lafayette is really its own entity, and Mr. Fields' district, Congressman Fields' district, goes from outside of Baton Rouge to outside of Lafayette to outside of Alexandria to outside of Shreveport. That's a lot of ground and a lot of different interests.
It is. Well, Supreme Court Justices Kavanaugh and Roberts voted with the majority when it came to outlawing use of race as a factor in college admissions. Knowing that, do you think that is any indication of how they may lean in this case?
I think it could be. Sometimes it is, but a lot of people have gone broke betting over whether what the justices do in oral argument ends up being what they do in their rulings. But I will say, several of the members of the court have said, we've got to get out of the business of basing anything in this country on race. We just have to do equal protection, which means equal protection of the laws for everyone.
Yeah.
That's the argument.
Now, this Louisiana redistricting case is not only big for us here in Louisiana, but obviously, ultimately, it could have a ripple effect across the entire country. So it's a big one.
It is a big one. I always like when Louisiana has a case at the Supreme Court level. It's so exciting to me as someone who loves constitutional law, but it would impact, and you could say for 45 years, affirmative action and the Voting Rights Act have had a real play in what is going on, and you could argue that it was necessary. But some of the justices, like Justice Gorsuch, have asked, is there a time limit to the Voting Rights Act? Have we corrected any of these problems?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It may be till next summer before we actually have a final verdict on this, but we'll be following it closely. Royal, great to have you here. Thanks for your insight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.